Oh, it's still on. Hi, everyone. I'm a tick. Sorry, had to get that background music off. Got a couple of viewers here, so we'll just give it 5 minutes and have a general chin wag while we're waiting for everybody else to, hopefully a few more to get on line and join the live stream. I got the notifications out a little late this week, been a bit busy, so we might not get as many as we have in the past, so we'll see how we go. Been trying to get a few guests on the program, but at the moment that is proving difficult as well. I didn't realise how hard it was. All these people I've approached, they've all got things on, or they're on other podcasts or so things. So hopefully in coming weeks we can do it. I've had a few express interest on coming on board who came, so I think a few good names. So hopefully we can make some announcement in that regard in the next few weeks. In the meantime, sadly, you guys will just have to put up with me for a bit. So I'm just trying to, there is my chat. So if you're out there and you can hear me, send me a message on the chat or anything like that. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking. And go from there. I always, after my second episode, I'm a bit nervous about that because I chatted for an hour for no good reason because mute was on and no one could hear me. And I didn't realise because at that stage I didn't have chat. So if you can hear me and the sound is good, send me through a message. Tonight we'll be launching another policy into our conservative platform. Sorry, just trying to get warm here in chilly old Melbourne. Subject we'll be talking about later on. But yeah, we'll be putting another policy on. And for those who are joining for the first time, we put a policy on each week. We've got 2 policies onto that conservative platform. One is to introduce a Bill of Rights. Another one is to freeze immigration for 10 years. And our third one tonight, I think will be popular amongst conservative leaning people, if not a lot of others as well. So we're starting on some big picture items to begin with. We will delve into some finer areas in regards to this conservative platform that we're building. We've had a couple of suggestions, which we're going to be, most of them we're going to actually bring on board at a later date. For one example, in response to one of the criminal issues, is the reintroduction of the death penalty. I never supported that previously. I am supporting it now. I think in certain cases where it's irrefutable and the crime is that bad, a death penalty should be looked at. So I just think the increasing crime in Melbourne and probably other major cities, it's getting some of it's getting beyond evil, and the only way to I don't know what the word is, to make people not want to commit these crimes is to make the ramifications so big that they would think twice before doing so. So I do think we need to go conservative, old school, and really look at the death penalty for the most heinous of crimes in society, and not give people motivation to commit them. they know that there's a repercussion if they do. So there's little things like that have been put through. If you've got some ideas, feel free to send me an email or a DM on my Twitter account. I actually have meant to get a QR code up here that I'll put up that can send you to a page on the website. I'll put that on my to-do list for next week. So if there is anything you want to talk to me about or suggestions you want to send through, you can scan the QR code and hopefully get all those details. So I'm assuming at the moment that my microphone's working okay and everyone can hear me, because we keep getting new viewers onto the stream, which is great. And again, if there's something you want to chat about, send me a message. Any sort of current affair. What I will do is go into the latest policy announcement. I feel like a politician. I'm not too sure I should be saying it's announcement, but it's another policy that we're going to add to our Eureka Conservative platform. So it should get more exciting, actually, as we keep building and adding to it. And we'd be quite happy, for example, if any right of centre parties or even left of centre, who cares, adopt any of the policies that we put on here. I don't think many of the left of centre parties would do it, but certainly, who knows, some of the right of centre would already have some of these policies, but we certainly want to get a conservative platform. And the reason we're doing that is because there is no real conservative party in Australia anymore. We want to talk about conservative ideas and policies, talk about what it means to be conservative, and put those ideas forward. That'll be a big crutch of our programs and episodes going forward. So without any further ado, I will come up with what our next policy platform is. I've just got to share it. Bear with me for a little tick. And where is it? There it is. Oh, there it is. I think everyone should like this one. All right. So this is a policy for us to withdraw as Australia from any treaty or organisation that isn't in Australia's best interest. So there's a number of them. No doubt I've missed a few on this, but I'll just quickly go through it. We need to remove ourselves from any treaty or organisation that doesn't act in Australia's best interest. The first one on that hit list would be the UN and its associated programs. They should be the first organisation to remove ourselves from. It has become a cesspit of nations that don't share our values and a hotbed for corruption. We should have nothing to do with it. We don't need the UN. We've got ambassadors in most countries. We can define our own policy, our own alliances, why we need to go to that place, and to have the communications with other countries is beyond me. We're dealing with countries that have the most horrid human rights records, and they sit on their human rights commission or committee or whatever it is. We should have nothing to do with it. It's not worthwhile, and it's a waste of money, and it's just another gig for our politicians after their political career is finished to have a cushy job. They get a lot of money for doing absolutely nothing, and they get to live in New York or wherever in the thing. The next one on the hit list is the Paris Accord. To me, that's pretty obvious. Because of all these things we've signed off in regards to the Paris Accord and net zero, it's crippled our energy industry, making it harder for industry, business and domestic use and for people to survive. So that's got to go. We need a total removal from the WEF and any NWO initiative, especially net zero. That is causing, I think we can all agree, plenty of hardship for a lot of Australians. It's doing us no good, and we're spending trillions of our taxpayers' money to put in ridiculous renewable policies. So WF and net zero has got to go. And I think we've got to go a step further. We need to make it illegal for any person holding WEF membership to, it says to sit in our parliament. Sorry, that's a typo. That should read to not sit in any of our parliaments. So you want to be a WEF member, you want to go there, that's fine, but you don't get elected to the parliament because you can't serve two kings. If you sit in our parliament, you serve Australia first, second, third, not the WEF. We also need to have an immediate removal of any association with the WHO, the World Health Organization. That shouldn't be surprising after their abysmal effort throughout COVID-19. We can again decide our own health policies and our own programs to deal with any pandemics. We shouldn't be relying on some socialist idiot in the WHO. So any future association, any world organisation also, I would put forward, needs to be approved through a referendum at our federal elections. So we don't want referendums every second week or whatever, but if you want to put us into an international organisation, then the people should decide that. The argument should be made, and it would be pretty straightforward to include that in any federal election with a referendum to be conducted on the same day. So that is our next policy. So as you can see, we're getting into some big picture sort of ideas on the policy front. Sorry, I should have expanded that. So I've read those out going forward, but certainly that's the way we want to be going on our conservative platform. I'll see if I can enlarge it. There we go. And hopefully that can, one, save us an awful lot of money, but two, give us the power to decide what we want to be doing with all our assistance overseas to whatever country we want to do. We shouldn't be getting told or manipulated by anyone at the UN, at the WEF or the WHO. So Australia should be deciding what to do with its world assistance if it wants to give that to other countries. But we should be having very much an Australian first priority. And once we are out of debt and we've got extra dollars, by all means, then help our neighbours. But we've got to start looking after our own interests first. So, yeah, that's our next policy. So, like I said, I haven't had a lot of time this week to be doing a bunch of stuff on the policy front. So when I don't have a lot of time, we'll do one a week. So again, someone send me a message, tell me you're hearing me. It'd be interesting to hear everyone's thoughts on that. So we've gone to introducing a Bill of Rights, a freeze on immigration for 10 years, and withdrawal of any organisation that doesn't serve Australia's best interests. So we'll put the details, we'll share that on our website that we've got in the coming week. So people, like I said, can scan a QR code, you can go on there, see the details of our policy platform as we build it. A couple of our policies will go across onto, I'll show you our pillars of conservatism. When I get it up, where is it? There it is. Yeah, that. Well, there we go. So the pillars of conservatism, again, we'll go through. So a couple of these, like this one, nationalism and governance, that would come under. So just because we initiate a policy, it might go under one of these pillars. So these are the pillars that we've got. We've got 7 at the moment. We may expand or withdraw them. Christianity, nationalism, conservatism, justice, hope and innovation, governance, economy and finance. They're the pillars that we believe a conservative policy platform should be built on. We got a message, Leanne. Agree, of course. Great minds think alike, Leanne. So obviously I'm being heard. So I think they're 3 good policy platforms, policy ideas, for us to be able to start with. So there's a lot more coming. There's certainly a lot more I've got in my head that I would like to announce it, but I sort of want to milk this so we can get discussions on each episode. So that is where we're going to be going with that. So for, again, anyone who's new to what we're doing, when we build this platform, what we are going to be doing is inviting people who claim to be conservative, especially within the Liberal Party, to come on board in here and discuss these issues with us. Let's find out, excuse my French, where these bastards really lie. They claim to be conservatives. Are they conservatives? And I've written to every Liberal and National MP, every candidate that stood at the last election, and I'm challenging them, if you're really conservative, to split from the moderates and form a new party. Now, there's been a lot of talk today, as much as everywhere else, about, not just in Australia, but in other countries, about forming new parties. You know, if we keep forming new parties, we're going to have 50 parties on the right of centre. We're going to dilute our vote. That happened last election, and we handed the ALP government. You know, they didn't win by an overwhelming thumping majority on the percentage of votes, but they won a lot of seats. And we've got to get, in my opinion, a conservative right of centre movement that enjoys majority support from Australians, so we can get a government that can defeat the ALP on a regular basis. Now, that used to be the Liberal Party. It has not been the Liberal Party since Malcolm Turnbull took it over. It is not the Liberal Party of today. And the Nationals had the right idea when they separated. In my opinion, they should have remained separated and encouraged Conservative MPs within Liberal Party ranks to join them. And they should have been the National Party, but then increased their focus onto an Australian-wide front where they also stood not just in regional seats, but in urban seats. So we'll see how it goes. I'm looking forward, along with those guests, to get, I'm really keen, the ones I'm really keen to talk to are younger generations. I think they're getting, dragged down a rabbit hole that they probably don't need to be going down. I think these days, with so much social media and so much junk on the internet, it's easy for them and understandable how they could get misguided in some of their thought process. So who knows? I could be misguided, but I am unlike, they like to slag off at the boomers. They did this week, but I'm unlike the other boomers. I don't get my information from mainstream media anymore. That stopped after Iraq and the WMD nonsense. I get nearly all my media, because I've got an IT background, from social media. So that could be Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and obviously a lot on X. So I'm unusual in that way, I think, for my generation. So I think I'm pretty much up to speed with a lot of the boomer issues, but also a lot of the issues for the younger people. I think the biggest issue for the younger ones, which I agree with them, is the affordability of housing. And it's something I think as a country we need to be working on, which we will work on a policy front on that one as well. So we would like to hear from everyone. We'd like to build up a grassroots movement through the Eureka podcast to try and put policies in front of our politicians, to bring them to a more of a conservative front and get these ridiculous moderates out of what we're doing as a country. So, that's the whole point. So we've got 3 policies now. We've got a policy, we've got a foundation for the pillars of conservatism. So we've got obviously 7 of those, 3 policies that have added on, and every week we'll add 1 more policy, if not multiple policies on a given day. So by the end of this year, it should be really building up, which is exactly the point. We've got until the end of August next year to be able to have a really, hate it when you do these things. You've got a word on the tip of your tongue. Comprehensive policy platform to take to politicians. It will be interesting to see their response. So that's both state and federal. Obviously, there's a state election coming up. And, there's been a bit this week, in the last 2 weeks, there's been so much going on. But, for example, when they've been trying to bail out Pseudo, I don't know what the Liberals in this state are doing. If you were an independent person, you'd be thinking, look, the ALP is gone. There's no way they can win this next election. Yet the Liberal Party keep going and go, hold my beer, we'll find a way. And sure enough, they're finding a way to throw away the unlosable election. There is no way this should even be a contest. ALP should be gone next election. The Liberals should walk into office, but they're finding ways to lose this. And I do hold out fears that that's exactly what we've got to do. And at state level, it's probably a bigger issue. Everyone bags Victoria, but at state issue in Victoria, we don't have a lot else outside the ALP and the LNP. There are minor parties, but they're only small parties. They're not going to make much of an impact. They're not as active as what they are federally, simply probably because they don't have the funding to be able to be as active. So, at state level, I think in most states, it's, LNP or ALP still. So some people call that a uniparty, but that's what we've got. So that's probably a bigger issue than what we have federally. But even then, there is an issue with the minor parties, I believe, federally. And in fact, that we keep getting new minor parties which keep diluting the centre-right vote. So that's just my opinion. Happy to share them with everybody. Happy for anyone who wants to push back. You can do that via the chat. You can do that if you want to. Send me a DM by coming on and being a guest of the podcast. So that'd be good. You don't have to come in here. This is just my home office, obviously. If you watched any podcasts before, I'm not trying to be a Joe Rogan. I might look a bit like him with the shaved head, a bit older, certainly not as fit. But if you wanted to come in on the podcast, feel free to send me a DM. Would love to have somebody else actually to chat to. Sorry, my dog's trying to get under my legs because I've got the heater going, and in Melbourne it's pretty cold compared to others. So feel free to send some stuff through the chat. I'm going to share. I'm just going to generally go through, now that I've gone through the policy, go through a bit of, what do I call it? The, the politics from this week on X. That is what I'm trying to say. So I'm just going to try and get up my bookmark folders. I'll share this screen in a minute. Prepare yourself when I share this screen. The first photo is not a good one. So we'll scroll down, have a general chat, and then we'll come back to that policy announcement as we go. So prepare yourself. Like I said, it's coming. And there it is. That has to be one of the uglier photos that you would ever see. And, while we have a bit of fun with it, that would have to be four of the most useless politicians we've ever had in this country. Yet they love sharing that photo on X. So that one in the middle, Chris Bowen, will go down, I think, as the worst politician. There's a lot of others that should be in that boat, but he's head and shoulders above so many as the worst politicians we've ever seen. He's a small man by stature, he's a small man by values, and he's a small man by IQ. And that muppet behind him, Burke, should go to jail for treason in my book. What he did before the last election by swearing in all those immigrants so they could vote, I think was a disgrace. And he sells out Australia on a regular basis. So as do all these muppets. Don't even get me started on Penny Wong. But anyway, that's who we've got in at the moment. So we'll just... That's probably enough of that. As you can... There's a few things I think you can take out of that in regards to that idiot on the stage. This was in England, in Glastonbury. And just the lyrics of that, I heard you want your country back, where you can basically F off. So, a lot of people want to talk about immigration and multiculturalism and all this sort of thing. I think that's just there's two things in there that come out for me. This guy on stage is telling what has been millions, not just in UK, but in other countries like Australia, USA, especially in a lot of the European countries, that, basically they've taken the country and we'll never get it back to what we wanted it, or how we want it in our own country. We've allowed this, our politicians, I should say, have allowed this, but certainly voters have also allowed it a bit to a degree in bringing people into our country, allowing them to work and live here, be citizens here, but they have designs not on just not accepting our way of life, but ultimately, and you've only got to watch enough videos online or talk to even some people, they see themselves as ultimately taking over the country, an Islamic caliphate or whatever they call them. So there's no doubt that some of these people would have that design in regards to Australia, just as they do in England. And England is a few years ahead of us, but make no mistake, we're moving this way. And what is also amazing, if you look at the photos of the crowd, you've got a bunch of white kids, white younger people who are dancing along to this rubbish music. It's not even good music. I've never been a fan of rap, but there's some rap I really like. But, a guy getting up there saying this and making fun of the country that's given him the opportunities and swearing and carrying on like that, I don't get why they enjoy it. I think most of them will be, probably 2/3 of them will be high as a kite on drugs or whatever they're taking. But even then, if this guy had have tried to dive into the crowd when I was younger and at a live concert, I wouldn't have caught him. I would have let him land on his ass. But you don't say that sort of thing about the country we're all patriotic to and should be loving. He obviously doesn't love England. He wants to take England over. And I think a lot of us have got to be very careful not to get sucked into this anti-Israel thing too much because, I said in a post this week, if Israel's wiped off, let's say these people get what they want and they get rid of Israel off the Middle East map, do you actually think they're going to stop there, or are they going to actually set their eyes on elsewhere? That'd be just the first stage. I mean, a lot of the Israelis say, they're what's standing between the Western civilization and collapse. And I think there's a bit of truth to that. Now, if they did knock off Israel, and let's say they had the nuclear weapons and they could wipe them off the face of the earth, basically, or the river to the sea nonsense, if they won that battle, the Islamic extremists would definitely set their sights on Western countries that have a high fifth column. And for those of you who don't know what a fifth column is, that is a significant group of people in your country that if they're basically anarchists, they want to tear down the country and replace it with something else. And if a conflict ever started, they would actively work against the governing body and the country that they're living in. So if we went to war for Iran, for example, how many people in Australia would actually jump on Iran's side? I think we'd be surprised, so I'd get with that light, on how many would. There'd be quite a few. So we've got a fifth column in Australia, you've got a fifth column in England, you've got a fifth column in America, you've got potentially a fifth column right throughout Europe. While it's caused a bit of controversy, I think there's a bigger, sadder picture behind it. So anyway, that's on that one. We'll move on to the next part, which will be interesting. Sorry, guys. Is that my sharing? No. I'm doing an RV. I watched RV today. Here we go. This is a really funny one I found today. I'll enlarge this because I think you should be able to read this. And basically it's saying science experts are now saying that what was vast deserts and absence of life may indicate that Mars was once governed by a Labor Party. So true. So I got to laugh at that. So another one, Mark Knight never lets us down. But this is one that actually is a bit serious. I mean, we just had a vote on a voice to Parliament, and now our state Labor government is bringing in a voice to Parliament through the state legislation. So we're going to have our own body introduced apparently to our parliaments by the end of this year. And they talk about unity and all this sort of stuff going forward, but how do you unify a country, a state, a community when you put others above you? We're well past having to feel guilty about what went on when Australia was being built as a nation. I mean, my opinion on a lot of this is, throughout human history, borders are only there if you're strong enough to defend them, okay? If you're not strong enough, and it happened in the Roman Empire, it happened in the Persian Empire, it happened in the Greek Empire. If you weren't strong enough, stronger countries or cultures would invade your country and take it over. The Roman Empire did that for 500, 600 years. Alexander the Great did it right through Persia. Persia did it. So it's human history that borders get knocked down, countries get taken over, and if you don't do it, no one else will. So, the core base of it is the indigenous culture, as they like to call themselves, back when the British Empire and other empires, by the way, came to Australian shores, simply weren't strong enough to keep their country. So you can cry about that all you like, but they basically, the British Empire walked in, planted flags everywhere, and took over the running of Australia. Were there bad things happen? Yes, but that happens in every society. But we keep tearing ourselves up and feeling guilty about it. So this welcome to country is just the nonsense, and we shouldn't be doing it. So be good just to get away from all this ridiculous thing. Now, apparently this is not going to be embedded in the Constitution. So that says to me, if it's not going to be embedded in the Constitution, Brad Batten has the perfect chance to come out here, make a fight of this, and say he'll revoke it. If it's not in the Constitution, it means it can be removed. So he won't, I don't think. I hope he does. I hope he surprises me. But the Liberals seem to be too petrified to do something that can be painted as racist or bigoted or anything like that. If it was Trump, he'd be knocking this on the head straight away. So they've got to get some, pardon the French, some balls about them and start taking on these start taking on these issues. So move on to the next one. Now, here we go again. Power bills going up. My bigger issue, power bills. We go back to Chris Bowen and Albo and all his people in there. Whatever happened to this renewable superpower that was going to reduce prices? Have we ever seen a headline saying power bills are coming down? We were told that it was cheaper. It was going to revolutionise our energy commitments and the power bills were going to be coming down. Yet every quarter, it seems, power is going up. And when is this renewable superpower going to kick in that reduces our bills? I'm dreading my next bill here in the middle of winter. It's always high. I think it's going to be higher. I've got a gas heater. So, and the rest obviously is electric. But, I think like everyone out there that's struggling with the cost of living, high power prices are killing us, not just at home, but just going to the supermarket because your higher energy you've got, it flows across everything into industry, into transport. Everything goes up. The prices of everything goes up, and all of that gets passed on to us poor buggers who have got to survive and are not on the $500,000 wage that Jacinta Allen's on. She doesn't care about us. She'll say she cares about us, but she's more worried about getting some ridiculous treaty, which is going to be rorted, some voice to Parliament, which is going to be rorted like you wouldn't have even believed. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the candidates that are in that working group for the treaty or the voice to Parliament in Victorian state level. Seriously, I look more Indigenous than what many of them do. It's just a joke. We all know it's a joke. And it's about time people started calling it out, and that should start with Brad Batten. So we'll move on. Sorry, guys, we'll get through all these. There's a bit to talk about, like I said. So that's that one. This one's interesting. Albo can't get a meeting with Trump, so it's blowing up our defence forces. Now, we've had a really interesting fortnight. I've been on X arguing with a bunch of people about Iran and the USA getting involved because everyone was losing their minds that we were going to get involved. I don't think that was ever realistic a chance. Glad I was proven right. Glad Trump came through for me. But here's one fact of the matter. If the Americans call on us and they want us to up our defence spending, we should be doing that anyway. So there's two rounds of thought. We rely on the Yanks and we need to forget about the Yanks and just stand our own 2 feet. Well, neither of those, with both those options, Australia needs to be spending a hell of a lot more on self-defence than what it's currently doing. The fact is, if the Americans wanted us in Iran, what could we offer? We had nothing. We've got a pop gun fleet. We've got no subs. The subs are antics, from long ago. We can't get the new ones because no one's talking between Australia and America. What's our Air Force and missile program going to do when the big boys are shooting ballistic missiles at each other and then knocking them all down? I mean, the thing that worried me watching that whole Iran-Israel thing and the missiles landing on Tel Aviv, at least they had a defence capacity to knock those missiles out of the sky. What has Australia got? If we had Melbourne or Sydney getting ballistic missiles fired at us, how could we stop them? Do we have the Patriot missile system? I couldn't believe during the week that there was a stat out that apparently Australia spends more on our defence force than what Israel spends on theirs. That blew my mind. How? What are we spending it on? We're not getting much bang for buck. And if we're going to have nuclear submarines, why do we not have a nuclear arsenal that's located? We've got desert everywhere in Australia. We should have nuclear missiles, 30 of them like Israel's got, planted across Australia and make it known we've got them. And if China want to come in, just let them know, yeah, okay, send your troops over here. But by the time your fleet gets halfway across, we're sinking it with a nuke, or when they land on the beaches, wherever it is. Now, you've got to have a way of deterring these other countries that would have a sights on us if we weren't in an alliance with America. So, Albo seems more dedicated to Kevin Rudd than what he does to Australia's defence. He won't raise the money we're spending on it, and he's not really working on the alliance we desperately need with America if we are going to try and defend our country from any force. Anybody, and I know a few of my libertarian friends out there think this is the case, we have to be the Switzerland of the Pacific. That's just a nonsense. I mean, Indonesia, if it ever works in alliance with China, their army just would overwhelm us if they could land it on the shores. I mean, they've got that many people in uniform. China, obviously, if they really want to do it, could take it. So maybe they don't want to, maybe they're not. But to sit back here and hope that we can be this Switzerland where no one will ever look to invade us. And we're a continent. Switzerland's a small country. We've got resources coming out of our ears. We don't use them. Any enemy would be smart to say, well, look at Australia. Look at the resources. They don't want to use them. We'll milk them. We'll come in. We don't care about treaties to Parliament or, what's going on in the last 250 years. I wouldn't underestimate that at all. And to do that would be foolish. We need a defence force, whether it's ours or it's an alliance with America, defend our country. So, sorry, there's some really ridiculous arguments going about. I'm not saying send troops to foreign wars. I'm totally against that. There are some foreign wars that are justified. I haven't seen one for a while, but we needed to be able to defend Australia, and who honestly can say right now we're capable if China invaded in the next 2 months. I don't think we're in any shape or means. So we could be getting sold out to China. I know I get that argument a lot, but I wouldn't be holding hope out that we have good alliances with that. And I like my life in Australia. I'd like it to remain as bad as it is sometimes. I think it's a lot better than if we had the Chinese Communist Party governing us. So next one, we got, like I said, there's a few here. Last week, Aman Grant, she lost at the court today against Billboard Chris. We said last week in our policy announcement with the Bill of Rights that this woman should be sacked. The E-Safety Commission should be just removed, demolished, and this woman here should be deported back to America, and there's two really interesting developments. One was the Billboard Chris judgment today. So she lost in court. How much did that cost the Australian taxpayer? That's not cheap. She went up against Elon Musk, and he would have had the best lawyers possible. And we've just wasted a whole bunch of taxpayers' money on a nothing case that should never have been brought. And because of that, she should go. If she was working in any corporation and she lost a legal case like that on stupidity, she would be getting packing up a desk and walking out the door that day. Same thing should happen to her right now. There's another one here later on too where she's involved. I love this lady, Prime Minister of Italy. As you can see on there, Malcolm Roberts shared this today. A Pakistani imam living in Italy for 30 years gave a fiery sermon. He said, every Muslim must fight the infidels or face catastrophic consequences. I like what that idiot with the dreads on the music stage pretty much was saying. The next day, this is the way she dealt with it. Italian PM Giorgia Meloni made a bold move. She personally ordered the deportation. No waiting, no drama, just action. How good is that? One, that's hot action. Number two, she's I don't know whether you can say this these days, but I'm going to say it. She's pretty hot Prime Minister. So not only can you really enjoy what she's doing, you can enjoy looking at her. When was the last time we could say that about any of our politicians? So, and you ladies, before you're all jumping down, I'm sure you rate a lot of the male politicians, whether they're hot or not hot. So don't jump on here and get all moralizing. So anyway, I just love the fact that she took that action. I heard, and I don't know whether it's true, that Tony Burke is going to give a visa for that dreadlocked idiot that was in England saying, I heard you want your country back that we showed before. He's going to get him a visa so he can come out here and have concerts here. Only Tony Burke could do that. I mean, seriously, that guy is a treasonous, traitorous bastard. And he the only thing he's worried about is keeping his seat. And his seat, if you looked at the demographics of it, he needs a lot of that Islamic vote. He'll play to them like you wouldn't believe. So anyway, sorry, guys. I'm a lot better with it now, but still getting used to it. Get my screen back up. Like I said, there's a lot. This one concerns me a bit. Elon Musk is looking to undermine Trump a little bit with this latest bill. I think it's a bit naive, and I love Elon Musk. I think he's an amazing man. But I just I think he's a little naive because he's so good with all his businesses about the reality of politics. You're never going to get anything you like through your legislations, especially when you're dealing with an upper house like the American Senate. I mean, they had that person no one had heard of today, who just I can't even what they call it, the Senate Politarian or something. And no, I've never heard of her, and I follow US politics pretty closely. But she's now made it they have to get 60 votes to get this bill through. Now, there was a really interesting tape, and I meant to have it saved on my bookmarks. I didn't, sadly. But it was another person putting an alternative perspective to Elon Musk. Now, Elon, his biggest issue is he wants to save a lot of money, cut back. We all want that. But here's my issue with it. It's just like in Australia, and we had John Ruddick, who I respect a lot. He was cheering this on. But I think a lot of the problem in Australia is we've diluted the centre-right vote so much that we've handed governance to the ALP. If Elon forms his own party, the America Party, he'll do the same thing with the centre-right vote in America. And just as they've got the Democrats dead and buried, he would resuscitate them by splitting the centre-right vote. And the only beneficiary out of that is the Democrats. So I think Elon Musk needs to rethink this a little bit, and he can still lobby. The fact that Trump didn't come all guns blazing for him last time, I think it means he's still got a lot of respect for him, and he can still lobby the people that have a lot of respect for Musk. And there's a few of them in the Republican Party. Rand Paul would be one of them. Massey would be another. There's quite a number that want to reduce America's spending. But as this guy put on the perspective, in this big, beautiful bill, they're financing everything Trump wants to do with their border. So they don't have to be spending hundreds of billions of dollars every year on dealing with their immigration problems. So that alone is going to reduce a lot of the spending and a lot of the deficit. And then in coming years, you can enhance that with further cuts. You can't get all the cuts you want in one go. So the most important thing in America is they're unlike us, is they have this Senate vote every 2 years. So Trump has been elected. He's got a majority in the Senate. But if he loses that majority, he won't be able to do much. Now, they are looking right now at Trump being president until 28. There's a number of them. Obviously, J.D. Vance has got the first go, I think, at the next election. But there's a bunch of people within the Republican Party in the MAGA movement that could put the hand up for future presidential elections. I love Marco Rubio. I think he would make an excellent president. And there's others within that group in his cabinet that all would make excellent potential nominees for president. So they could keep the Democrats out of power for a good 2 decades. If only we had that in Australia. So if any American friends are on here, get on there lobbying, because while Australia is under the boot of the ALP and their socialist factions, we need a strong America. We need a really strong man like Trump in power. And I'm hoping Trump that, for example, one of his first things does, he gets Kevin Rudd sacked. So that's something else that we probably should be praying for. But Musk, just hold your fire, just let it go through and start negotiating for future bills to go through and get your spending cuts there. That would be my advice if I ever had the ear of Elon Musk, which I doubt will ever happen. Now, how many of you have been following this nonsense? I was watching the ABC today, made a tweet on that, and they are just going over the top with this weather on the East Coast. Now, we're in the middle of winter, and the ABC reporter today said people are waking up today to wind and rain on their rooftops. We're going into July. Of course they're going to wake up to wind and rain on their rooftops. Come and try living in Melbourne for an extended period. And they're trying to make out that this is how the climate is changing and how it's historical and, using words like cyclones and weather bombs and all this. It's just crazy, dramatic nonsense designed to make everyone petrified about emissions and the climate change and all this thing, and to justify further subsidies of the renewables. Why? Because a lot of our politicians, no doubt, if not the majority of them, have a finger in the pie of the renewable industry, and they would be lobbied and paid. And, that's where we are going in Australia, no matter how many of us get hurt by the renewable nonsense. But they've got to justify it. And I hope they keep doing this stuff because I think people wake up how ridiculous it is. So I'm sure a few of you have seen that now. And, we'll get into summer and then we'll have the hottest day on record and how, the dams are going to be empty and, we're all going to die of heat exhaustion if we don't do something about it. Just blatant alarmism to try and scare the absolute crap out of people. But the thing they don't do is kids see this too. And, the youth of our nation are naturally petrified because they've been raised with this. So Conservatives have a responsibility to push back. So there's going. We're getting there, guys. I think I talked about this before, which I did, but well done to Billboard Chris. What a legend. Goes round, fights the good fight, speaks the truth about this transgender stuff with kids, gets abused every time, takes him on the court. Luckily, he had Elon Musk in his corner, but that's a huge win for freedom of speech in Australia. They're not going to take on Musk. Don't underestimate the buggers, though. They will come back harder than ever, especially against the normal people that won't get Elon Musk in their corner. And we will become, I think, a little bit like England, but this puts some doubt in their head where they will think twice before moving on any individual for just embracing free speech. So big win for Australia. So, and that's it. That's the politics of the week. So like I said, there is a lot that is going on in politics, both internationally, domestically, right through in what we're doing. So, there'd be a lot of developments, I think, coming out of all of this. And I think a lot of opinions, and as we do, we share them on X. So no doubt I've been sharing a bunch on X as we move forward. So if you don't follow me, I'll just have a quick look at that. My tag, when I get it all up, sorry guys, I'm just trying to find it myself. It is the Conservatai 19. So if you haven't followed me on X, give me a follow. It's at capital T H E capital C ONSERVATI 19, or just simply search for the Conservative. You'll see my Australian flag on there, and certainly interact with me. So I'm not going to lie, I enjoy the interaction on there. I enjoy the pushback, the cut and thrust of it. I'll give as good as I get. I don't get offended easily, though I did get a little offended this week, which I'll go through in a minute. But very rare for that to happen. I like to stir the pot. I think you got to, with X and with most social media, you have your opinion. There's a lot of serious discussion gets on, but I don't think you should take yourself too seriously. I think you need to get on there and communicate and try and win some people over. I think on the journey. Sorry, my mutt here keeps annoying me to get near this heater. So he's a funny boy. He'll go out. He'll get right near the heater. I'm sure a bunch of years have got pets understand this. But my boy, he's a big German Shepherd, so he's about 40 kilos now. And he'll sit right next to the I got one of those, I don't know what you call them, those electric heaters you can wheel in and out, Anyway, it sits under my desk, so he comes and sits right next to it until it gets too hot. Then he walks to somewhere cool, and when he cools off, he comes under my legs and gets right next to it again. So if you see me leaning down or pushing back, that's me letting my dog JJ in next to the heater so he can warm up. He hates it when I'm not paying attention, so that could be the other part of the job. So, so if you get on with me on X, like I said, I'd love to get some of you here on the chat. I think every Australian citizen has the right to have their opinions heard as long as we can be respectful of each other. There's a lot of opinion going on from the woke right that I don't agree with. I'm really concerned at that. It is so hard, as we know in Australia, to get a centre-right government and leader into power, and especially with what they did with Trump last time, that, you can have your differences of opinion with Trump. I certainly do on certain areas. I'm a big fan, but you never agree with everybody on everything. But the woke right in America concern me. So I'm talking about Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, even Joe Rogan, a little degree, where he's pretty good when he's one-on-one, but when he has that, what I consider an idiot, sorry if I cause offense to anyone, but Dave Smith, he's an idiot. He doesn't back up with a legitimate argument. And we've got a few in Australia too. And, the whole Iran, Israel, and USA thing, I don't think Trump was in any chance of trying to expand that and put boots on the ground. If you followed Trump for any length of time, he's always been opposed to that. I don't think there was any ever chance, but they went from point A to point Z in one leap. They didn't even give him a chance to put in his negotiation he had in mind, which was to eliminate the nuclear threat with Iran. And I think any rational person can support that. I don't think Trump was ever going to go in with boots on the ground or try and turn this into a World War III. I think he's too clever for that. I think these people underestimated. Yet they all came out and they just bagged him. You could have said, hey, listen, let's not make sure we don't go there and be trying to ensure that Trump wouldn't go any further. But they just came out and said, we're off to World War III, and the alarmism. So I think you've got the woke right and you've got the woke left now. We've got a few, I think, on the woke right in Australia. And I don't care. Again, could be unpopular with a lot of you. I don't care where you stand on the Jewish issue. I think the rise in anti-Semitism is not a good thing. I would much rather align with Israel than a lot of the Islamic extremist nations out there. You've only got to look through the history of it. The fact that Hamas hides behind their civilian population to intentionally raise those civilian casualties to say, oh, look how bad the IDF are, and then use it politically. I mean, that just shows you what sort of mentality you're dealing with. Now, you can have your arguments about Israel and whether they're going about it the right way. My argument would be, if we're in the same position as Israel, would we be doing any different? And I think if you're being reasonable, I think, no, we wouldn't. If we had a neighbour on our doorstep that wanted to wipe us off the face of the earth, invade our country, kill our wives, our kids, our children, I would be disappointed if we didn't want to just go all-out war on their asses, which is exactly what Israel's doing. So, unless you're a hypocrite, if you want to sing Kumbaya to a race of people that want to wipe you out, and it goes back to what I said before, you've got to be strong enough to defend yourself. And Israel seems to be copping a fair bit of plaque for doing that. So I don't believe a lot of the propaganda that comes out as well. Maybe I'm naive, but I'm not going to believe some of the casualty lists for the same reasons I said before, for those policy announcements that we announced on the UN. I do not believe UNRWA. I do not believe the UN. I do not believe a lot of the groups that come out and, for example, when they said 14,000 babies are going to die if we don't get aid into them or whatever, you've got to listen, and you can do it these days in social media and try and get things from all sides. So when that was going on, what a lot of the alternative, which you never hear in mainstream media, is that Hamas were actually ambushing the aid trucks and taking all the aid and food into their little hideouts below in their tunnels, and then they would go and sell it on at ridiculous prices. This aid's all supposed to be free from Western nations. So, but Israel copped the flack all the time. So, I certainly, and I've met and worked with a lot of Israelis. I've met and worked with not as many Islamic people, but some, and there's some fantastic Islamic people. There are fantastic Israeli people, but there's arseholes on both sides. So my opinion is we should try and keep out of this as much as we can. My opinion also is there should be something done about these protests on our streets. Big on free speech, but when does free speech become anarchy? What are these guys anarchists now that are marching every week and shouting these slogans? They've had their chance at free speech. They get it every single week. It's been going on for nearly 2 years. We need a government that can say, okay, you've got your opinion out there. We understand it, but now you need to stop. And if you turn up and you keep protesting, because don't forget, on every street they're protesting on, there's a business there that's not doing business. There's people who can't go about their daily lives. You want to maybe go into the city. I had my sister to my birthday on Saturday, so we're meeting for that to go out. And I suggested, because she's north of the city and I'm down in Mentone, and I suggested, should we meet in the city? And she's too scared to go into the city. She doesn't want to go in the city when all the protesters are there potentially on a Sunday. So we're keeping well away from that. So this only a decade ago was the most livable city in Australia. And this is going on in Sydney and Melbourne all the time. So I personally, this will be one of our policies under governance and under nationalism. You don't want to impinge on free speech, but the free speech really has got to be about Australian issues, not so much overseas issues. And maybe there's got to be some consideration, I think, on two things. One, if you really want to have that speech, you get one or two goes at it, that's it. And number two, I think there should actually be a part of each major city, and hear me out on this, that is allocated where you can go and protest. So go do your protest at that venue, but that's the only place you can protest. Get the news there, get the permit to go there, but you cannot protest in the middle of the city on any streets where people go about their business. If you really want to get your opinion across, don't impinge on other people's rights to go about their way of life, their business, about meeting with each other, going shopping. Return Melbourne to what it used to be, where we could go through the city, stop in the city, go shopping, get something to eat, meet up with family and friends. You just simply can't do that anymore. So I think that's incredibly sad for our Australian way of life, and that is something we'll be addressing for future policy announcements. Now, we've got a few, well, not a few, we've got a lot more new viewers on. So for those who missed out, I am going to share once more our latest policy announcement. So as you know, we have our pillars of conservatism. We've announced two policies. One's a 10-year freeze on immigration. Another one is an introduction of a Bill of Rights into our Constitution. And our third one today, which I'll get up, sorry for those who've seen this already, but I'll quickly go over it, try not to spend as long. I'll just get it up, and here we go. So our latest one is, and I'll just, hold on, I'll get this up a little bit, is it says the pillar of governance, but this would also come under nationalism, and that is the withdrawal from any treaty organisation that isn't in Australia's best interest. That first one on the rank will be the UN. We want to remove ourselves from that. It's become a cesspit of nations, and it's also become a hotbed for corruption. The next one, the Paris Accord, we got to remove ourselves from that. Through that, we've crippled our energy, making it harder for industry, business, and domestic use, and increasing, obviously, cost. A removal from the WEF and any NWO initiative, especially net zero. To build on that, we would introduce a law to make it illegal for any person who holds WF membership to sit in any of our parliaments. You either serve Australia or you don't. If you want to serve international causes, by all means go and do it, but resign from our parliament. Immediate removal of any association with the WHO, the World Health Organization. They were abysmal throughout COVID. And to reinforce this, that any future association with any world organisation or international body needs to first be approved by the Australian voting public through referendums at a time of a federal election. So if we did that, for example, at the time of a federal election, you're not going to have the cost of a normal referendum. We're going to vote anyway. So that would be where we go with that. So I just think that a lot of these international groups are not serving our best interest. They're a rort where people go get cushy jobs from Australia, finish their political careers, as Kevin Rudd does and a few others, and they go off to the UN or wherever and get a cushy bureaucratic job somewhere else while we're paying their pensions, these exorbitant pensions they get. So you want to serve them, fine, go serve them, but you're not going to sit in our parliament. And one thing I haven't thought of, but should be, if you're going to go and earn a cushy wage, every year you're earning that cushy wage in one of these international bodies, you should lose your year's pension. Why should these people, it's being polite, who are on a cushy pension after their political career's finished, get a job with a corporate company, get a job with an international body, get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, yet at the same time enjoy that year of pension from the Australian taxpayer? If you're going to move on from politics where you're going to get a high-level wage, why should the taxpayer then fund you a pension for that year? If you're going to retire, okay, you get your pension. I would definitely have a review of the cost of these pensions, because it's not the pension that you or I'll enjoy, and why they need a $300,000 pension and plus staff and all these sorts of things. It's ridiculous. So I definitely think that's something that needs to be reviewed moving forward. So if the politicians want the public to start buying in and respecting them again, they need to do something to earn that respect. So I think the most ridiculous tag of any individual in this country is when they put the honourable before every politician's name. So the Honourable Tony Abbott. Sorry, the Honourable Tony Abbott. Sorry, he's honourable in my book. The Honourable Anthony Albanese, Prime Minister of Australia. See, I still want Tony Abbott to be Prime Minister, but anyway. So, Tony, again, Albanese is neither honourable, and he's certainly not very honourable, and I wish he wasn't our Prime Minister. So I think he's just an arsehole, and he's a lying arsehole. So why I need to respect him, he's got to earn my respect to get my vote. He has not earned my respect. There's so many of them on both sides of politics haven't earned that tag, the right honourable. I think that actually should get removed. If they want the tag right honourable, they've got to earn that tag. But I'm not convinced they've deserved it. But anyway, that's just me. So unless anyone's got any questions, Leanne's given me one bit of chat. I'm probably going to call that for a night. I've been talking now for over an hour. Just to conclude with, again, I'm going to give that invite. If you want to come on as a guest, I think it would make the podcast really helpful. So I understand people's reluctance to put their face on social media. For me, it doesn't bother me. Ugly face. A lot of people, ugly opinions. I don't really care. There's only me and my dog. Good luck coming for me, because my dog will take your leg off before you get through the door. But if you've got me, or even if you want to nominate someone you think who should come on with me, by all means, let them give me a name, give me their Twitter profile. I'll DM them, or I'll try and get in contact and get them on. I've already tried to line up a couple of people with opinions that I think are really unique, a couple of potential politicians. I am going to invite every Liberal and National MP to come on and discuss and debate Conservative policy. That could be interesting if we get a couple of them on. But the one thing you can do is spread the word about the podcast. The more people we get on, the more people we're going to attract to come on as a guest, especially our politicians. So if you know of anybody, let me know, and I'll be happy to approach them. Or if you know them and you want to spread the word about the podcast so they can approach me, that'd be great. So if you've got anything else to chuck on or any chat, I'll give you about 1 minute. Otherwise, I'm going to go and cook some dinner and watch a film and go to bed. Got a big day tomorrow. Got to help the landlord play. He's got the house next door. It was interesting. I'll tell you one thing to finish off. It's a worrying bit for me. It reminds me a little bit. We're nowhere near that level yet. But through the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia back in 1917, the underbelly of the public was taught to dislike people in a better position than them. So some of that was warranted. A lot of that wasn't. It went a bit crazy where actually people lost their lives, lost their livelihoods, lost everything in their positions. But there's a bit of a language coming out now, for example. So I'm a boomer. I've rented my entire life. I made that decision well and truly a long time ago. I just felt I had better things to spend my money on with my values and what I wanted to do with my life than worrying about owning a property. My parents rented throughout all their life, so I figured I could do it. But I've never had any envy with people who wanted to own their own home. I've actually respected it. Never had any envy of people who want to have investment properties. I've actually respected that too. I do have a bit of an issue with Airbnb, but people who want to be landlords and all that, good luck to them, because they provide rentals for people like me. So if we had more of them, good. Hopefully my rent could go down because there's more rental properties in the market. People talk about pricing. It's like anything in a capitalist society. The more things you've got in the market, the chances are the rent will go down and the prices will go down. So it's a matter of capacity. But there is an underlying language at the moment to resent people who achieve in their lives. So if you're a landlord and you've got multiple investment properties, as you're being selfish and you don't deserve it, or if you're a boomer who saved up their superannuation, that's that tall poppy syndrome coming in. But that's a socialist attitude. We've got to start aspiring. They like they do in America, but even they've lost this a bit. You've got to start looking up and recognizing people have achieved and then trying to achieve yourself. So we've got to make our economy better. We've got to be producing more jobs, bringing back industry, finding ways to go about that where people can, if they want to, lead healthy, wealthy lives and look to buy things. Buying things shouldn't be looked down upon. Buying things should be encouraged to make our country wealthier. We're not doing that, and it does bother me a little bit that there's an attitude out there that we need to be making people give up things they've worked their entire lives to get to make it more affordable for others. I think we need to get a stronger economy, a stronger industry, so there's a lot more high-paying jobs so people can afford to be able to buy these other things. The problem isn't so much the cost of things. The problem is that wages and jobs haven't kept up where there's a bigger slice of the pie, so the regular man, woman, partners can actually afford to buy things like houses, cars, whatever. And if you go back a while under Menzies, you can buy those things on one wage. So I think there's a lot of ways of getting there. I don't think forcing people to give up what they've worked to own. And, a lot of those people would have worked 2 jobs, sacrificed a whole bunch just to make their repayments. Those of you like me, I didn't have a housing loan during the Keating years. But if you survived the Keating years when you had a loan for your business or your house, it was a lot worse than what it was today. A lot of the younger ones don't understand what that generation went through. So I think we've got to be careful. I think we need to talk to the younger generation more, and we've got to be very careful with our language moving forward, because what the politicians want is they want us at each other's throats. And it's something through the Eureka Conservative, by putting this policy platform together, hopefully we can draw people from all walks of life, and we can end up with a really comprehensive policy platform early to the middle of next year, and we can start presenting that to politicians, and hopefully in that journey get them all on here to discuss it. That's what the Eureka Conservative podcast is all about. Would love to get more people to talk. For me, I've talked enough tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Any ideas for the podcast, also send them through. I gave you my Twitter handle before. I'll get that QR code that I can put up from next week, hopefully, and move from there. So, look, good night. God bless. And I'll look forward to exchanging with you on Twitter. Not that I know who you are. If you want to identify yourself, feel free. So, again, good night. Stay safe, and we'll see you all next